Hi, my name is Olivia. I'm 14. Were you ever ashamed of your parents? Did they embarrass you at school or make you look stupid in front of your friends? I had to endure a lot of ridicule and mockery. Watch the video to the end and you will learn how sometimes children can be cruel. I never knew my real parents. They left me in an orphanage when I was a baby. I lived in it for 14 years and I can't say that it was a bad time. There were good guys and employees. I was quite comfortable. But still, I always waited to be taken to a family where I would have a mom and dad. But this did not happen for a long time. It was only when I turned 14 that a teacher came up to me and told me that there was a married couple who wanted to take me away. They were good and kind people. I was so happy and immediately agreed to meet with them. But the teacher warned me that I might not immediately get used to them because of their peculiarity. They were dwarves. At that moment, I didn't care about it and I agreed to the meeting. I pictured myself with new parents and was glowing with happiness. When I saw them for the first time on Skype, they were so sweet and were so happy to see me. Have you ever had your dreams come true? Soon the day came when my new parents came for me. I was very excited. You bet! After all, from this day on, a completely new life began. I had no idea what it was like to live in a family, but everything was about to change. I was waiting for them in the hall, surrounded by all my friends. We said goodbye and promised to each other that we would stay in touch. My parents came in, and I saw two very short people. Yes, I knew that there was such a disease, dwarfism, and of course I saw them in photos and met on Skype. I was sure that I was free from prejudice, but suddenly I felt very awkward. I noticed the kids' sideways glances and I could hear them giggling. My parents came up to me and said that they were happy to see me. I was very confused and could not answer. When we went out with them, I turned around and saw that one of the children could not help laughing and the teacher shushed him. We came to my new home. My parents showed me everything, and I really liked it there. It was a very cozy, warm house with a beautiful, simple decor and a pleasant atmosphere. I had my own room, and there was a big lawn around the house, and there was even a little dog. My parents were very friendly to me, but I couldn't look at them without paying attention to their peculiarity. I was afraid they felt it. All these thoughts made my heart very heavy, and when we had dinner, I could not eat a morsel. My parents tried to communicate with me, but I answered in monosyllables, and soon I got up from the table and went to bed. I couldn't bear the tension any longer. The next day after school, I went to the orphanage, to the children, hoping to get support. But when I arrived, I immediately heard giggles and felt angry glances at me. I tried to ignore them and just talk to them. However, they did not go to talk. Instead, they started insulting me and my parents, saying that they were ashamed to communicate with me. I was very surprised and upset. Were these the people I had been friends with for so many years? I burst into tears of resentment and told them that I thought we were friends. But they asked me to leave. I refused, and then one of them came up to me and pushed me in the shoulder. Others joined in and they started shoving me and laughing, and then I ran away from them. I began to curse myself for agreeing to leave with these parents, despite the fact that I liked them even in our first meeting. I really didn't want to go home. I went straight to my room. My parents tried to talk to me, but I asked them to leave me alone. I just lay there and tried to deal with what happened today. I realized that this situation did not suit me. I was not ready to lose friends to strangers, even if they were technically my parents. I decided to go back to the shelter. My escape was unlikely to succeed, so I had another plan. I began to make sure that my parents themselves returned me there. I started skipping classes at school, and when I came, I failed and was rude to the teachers. Soon, my parents started receiving complaints from the school about my behavior. But they were very patient. Even when I made a mess in the house or even broke something as if by accident, my parents were understanding and calmly asked me to be careful. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't get them mad. At one point, I could hear them discussing that I just needed to get used to my new home. That's when I realized my plan wasn't going to work. They were too kind to me. It should have been nice, but it only made me angrier. Moreover, the children from the orphanage who went to school with me had already spread a rumor about my family. And now, even at school, I couldn't walk a step without being mocked. Have you ever been bullied? Then you know how I felt. Then, I had a new plan. Now, of course, I am ashamed of what I did. I remembered that I saw a social program on TV about how employees took children from an unfavorable family. I decided to do the same. I anonymously called the helpline and told them that I saw parents beating and humiliating a child near a supermarket that stood near my house. I specifically spoke in a tearful voice so that they would believe me. They asked me for the address and promised to come and investigate. I didn't think I was doing the right thing, but I was looking forward to going back to the orphanage soon and not being humiliated. Employees of the Child Protection Service arrived the next day. My parents were very surprised to see them. The employees told them that they had received a complaint about child abuse. My parents just threw up their hands and swore that nothing had happened. For a while, the employees looked around the house, asked my parents questions about their lives, and wrote something down in their notebooks. I began to worry that they might see through my lies. What would I get for it? Then they came up to me. They took me to another room and asked me if I had called them on the phone. I was very worried. I forgot everything I said at the time and was talking some nonsense, and they listened carefully and wrote it down. Then, without a word, they went into the living room where my parents were standing. I saw that my mother was crying and I felt uneasy. The employees reported that they were required to conduct a detailed investigation and open a case. If they realized that I was in danger, I might be removed from the family. I didn't expect this. I thought I was just going to be taken away, and I didn't want to ruin my foster parents' lives. The employees told me to pack, but I just froze. On the one hand, my plan worked, but on the other, was it worth it? Seeing my hesitation, the employees said that if I had something to say, it was better to do it now. I looked at my parents and realized I couldn't do this. I burst into tears of shame and confessed that I had lied. I begged not to punish me for making a false complaint, and the employees chuckled and said that more checks would be needed. My parents went outside to see off the uninvited guests. I followed them. They looked at me with surprise and resentment. My father asked me to explain what had happened. As I continued to cry, I told them how I was being bullied by my friends at the orphanage and classmates at school because my parents were dwarves. My father told me that they did not want to be a burden to me and spoil my life. They only wanted to accept me into their family. I could leave at any time. They didn't hold me. But then he said that before I did, I had to ask myself what was more important to me, the opportunity of a loving family or friends who were ready to laugh at me at the first opportunity. Of course, I knew what he meant. Friends who behaved like this were not friends at all, but a family like this. This was what I had dreamed of all my life. How can you deprive yourself of the dreams due to the fact that someone out there laughs at you? I was so ashamed that I had caused so much trouble to my parents. I asked for forgiveness. And I hope they don't hold grudges and I can correct my first impression of myself. It wasn't long before I felt like a part of their family, and now I'm very happy that I still stayed with them. If you like my story, then like it and subscribe to the channel. I hope you have real friends, not those who are ready to turn away from you at any moment.
Hi, I'm Trudy. I'm 15 years old. Do your parents like to poke their noses into your affairs, pester you with questions, read your texts, enter a room without a knock? How far can they go? Watch this video to the end, and you will learn how love pushed my father to put cameras in my room, and what he saw there. My family is friendly. My mother is a pastry chef, and her fantastically decorated cakes and desserts are popular, both in social networks and among customers. My dad is a documentary filmmaker. He even has several awards. Anyway, I have lived all my life in a very creative and free atmosphere. That's probably why I speak first and then think. My 15th birthday was approaching, and I had huge plans. I wanted to throw a great party, the coolest, most awesome, and craziest. I even asked my parents to go somewhere that day so that I and my guests could hang out without extra supervision. It was very important to me. The thing is, it's not like I don't have friends. I have some since kindergarten, but the last time we all got together was when we were about 10 years old. I never made any new friends, and I wanted so much to get back to the years when we were rocking. And I thought that a decent party would bring us all together again, but in a grown-up way. I sat down to plan. I had so many ideas and just had to provide everything. Drinks, food, music, decorations, a program. My head was spinning. The more I was burying myself, the more I realized I wasn't making it. I became angry, nervous, irritated. Have you ever been so intent on a goal that you forget to look around? Dad started to worry about me and asked if I needed help. Of course, I refused. Dad and Mom are nice, but the party at the old place ended up with tea and Monopoly. Dad just sighed and smiled. Only then, replaying this conversation in my memory, I thought maybe I shouldn't have been so abrupt. But I pushed the thought away. Then, when all this craziness was over, we would talk normally. Finally, everything was somehow ready, and I was left with one pleasant little thing: to send out invitations to everyone. I could already see myself in the middle of my big party, and everyone would talk about how cool it was and how cool I was. For a few days, I was in pleasant and impatient euphoria, and if any thoughts crept in, then everyone needed time. And then, one by one, the refusals came under various pretexts. At first, I wasn't upset, but then, when my entire guest list was reduced to 5 people who simply had nothing to do with the evening, I realized no one needed me anymore. And no party was going to change that. I didn't just have no friends, I didn't have anyone. I lost heart. First, I locked myself in my room and lay for a long time looking at the wall. I didn't even have the strength to cry, just a huge cold hole in my chest. Then I canceled the party and told my parents they didn't have to leave, but I didn't let them buy a cake and congratulate me. I didn't want to celebrate anymore. And only then I burst into tears and could not calm down, even in spite of the hugs from Mom and Dad. Dad didn't give up so easily. He hugged me and told me to go to the movies, to spend the night in a tent in a national park, to go on a picnic or to an amusement park. Why was he such a fool? I pulled away from him and shouted at him not to even try to understand me. After that, I ran to my room. I lay on my bed, and I think I cried all night. In the morning, my eyes were red and my face was swollen. When I went into the kitchen for breakfast, Dad tried to say something, but I just took my plate and went to my room. So passed all the days before my birthday. I either didn't say anything or went into another room. I planned to spend my birthday without even getting out of bed. I would just sleep and stare at my phone. So I did, sometimes getting out to chew Pop-Tarts. At some point, I fell asleep. I woke up in the evening from an annoying squeak. It wasn't my alarm clock or my phone, and the sound came from nowhere. I had to get up and look for what it was. What was my surprise when it turned out to be a small camera above the door to my room? It was squeaking because its battery was dead. But how did it get there? I didn't have anyone else in my room, just me and my parents. So it was put there by Dad? Has your personal life ever been invaded so unceremoniously that you were at a loss for words? You can imagine how I felt. Yes, of course, I hadn't spent much time with my parents lately. I spent too much time and effort preparing for the party, and then I withdrew into myself. I remembered the look on my father's face when I shouted at him, and I felt so ashamed. But still, this was not a reason to get into my personal life. He couldn't do that. I was going to shut this down. I had a hair trigger, made a fiery speech. I was already shaking with anger. Let him show himself. The doorbell rang. Mom and Dad were standing in the doorway. Mom was holding a huge box of cake, and Dad had a big bunch of balloons on a string. They were smiling happily. I got mad. How could you? How dare you? Their faces fell, and my classmate's head poked out from behind my dad's back. I stood on tiptoe, and behind my parents was a crowd of everyone I invited to my party. Happy birthday? My classmate said uncertainly. Happy birthday, my old friend shouted from the crowd. How did you do it? What's going on here? I wanted to ask, but I pulled myself together and invited everyone inside. But no one looked displeased or like they were lying, and they all smiled at me and congratulated me. Dad helped Mom with the cake and put the balloons on and came over to me. Go change, he told me. My room was quiet and I was finally able to collect my thoughts. By some miracle, my parents decided to organize a party for me and managed to call all my friends. And they came. How? What? Why? Still, what Dad did was wrong. While I was dressing and combing my hair, the furniture in the big room was rearranged, the table set, and music started playing. There were balloons and paper ornaments everywhere, and everyone was having fun. And I felt like I was smiling back at all of this. And then Dad asked for the floor. He turned on our big TV, and I almost died on the spot. Not again the video from my 6th birthday. I wanted to make a movie about how my daughter prepared her own birthday, Dad began. So I decided to take a little hidden camera footage. And here's what happened. On the screen, I was busy day after day, listening with half an ear all the time, drawing, writing, counting. I didn't pay any attention to my parents and to how I upset them. I was happy and excited when I sent out all the invitations. And a few days later, when I sat down at the table with a completely empty face. And then I was lying on the bed with a blank stare. It turned out that my dad sent part of this video to all my friends, and it touched them all so much that they decided, with the help of my parents, to still have a party for me. I buried my face in my dad's shoulder and started to cry. My father and mother hugged me, and I felt so calm and easy in my heart, as I had not been for a long time. And then the party went on as usual. It was fun, it was noisy, there were congratulations and gifts, there were dances and competitions, there was a cake and candles. But one way or another, all the time I was closer to my parents. Then, of course, I scolded my dad, and he promised that he would never allow himself to do this again. But we all walked away with a conclusion. What surprises did your parents make for your birthday? Tell us about it. Don't forget to like this video so that as many people as possible know our story. And subscribe to our channel so that you don't miss new videos.
Hi, my name is Danny, and I have holes in my face. Are you dissatisfied with something in your appearance? Maybe you have too big a nose or a mole on your face? A bad haircut? Well, it pales in comparison to the holes in the face, agree? But not everything is so bad. Watch this video to the end and find out how I wrap these holes to my advantage. I have great parents. Not many people are so lucky. When my teenage rebellion started, they didn't press me. When I first dyed my hair, my mother helped me. And when I asked for a tattoo for my 60th birthday, my dad found a cool tattoo parlor for me and signed the permit. Of course, the school didn't approve of it. Any school didn't approve of it, to be exact, and I, because of my stubbornness and unwillingness to wear a uniform, changed 3 in 1 year. And even in the last, the most loyal, where I am on excellent account with the administration, the teachers look at me with apprehension. And I don't care about them. Most importantly, that I like it. Liked. When I abruptly stretched the tunnels in my ears, I wanted something new, and I thought to do something similar with the face, on the cheeks or chin. Of course, something elegant, not 20 millimeters, but something symmetrical and small. I told my parents that I would do a small piercing, and they gave me permission. I was going to pierce both cheeks at once so that the case would not be delayed for 6 months, as it was with the ears. I wanted to make a big show at the prom. I changed a couple of salons because specialists refused to take on the operation or demanded to bring my parents, but I found a consonant. Was there an event in your life that divided everything into before and after? A terrible border of existence. For me, such an event was a damn operation. No, everything went according to plan at first. I looked like a mummy or a hamster when I woke up. My face was terribly swollen and wrapped in bandages. Doc promised that everything would be fine when the swelling subsided, and I went home with a clear heart. Parents were not very happy, but it was always easier to put them in front of the fact. It was better to beg for forgiveness than permission, believe me. However, when I took off the bandages and was going to go to school for the first time to show off the new modification, I was covered with a real icy horror. There were empty spaces around the standard tunnels Doc had inserted into the cheeks. It looked like I'd been shot in the face at point-blank range, or like I was a zombie with bad makeup. Everything was rotting, oozing blood, the rings were not holding at all, and the skin was literally hanging in rags. And I stood in front of the mirror for a good half hour because fear drove me into a stupor. I had to rush to that doctor instead of school and find out what the hell was going on. Doc was as surprised as I was and sent me straight from the salon to the clinic for tests and to the surgeon who promptly removed the dead tissue. Instead of neat tunnels through which my white teeth could be seen, I got huge holes in which my jaws gaped through. It was so creepy that I covered my face with a scarf and hood on the way home. I promised myself I would never leave the house again because my face looked worse than in a horror movie nightmare. I pulled down the curtains in my room and stopped getting out of bed, feeling terribly weak, my knees buckling and my vision blurred as I tried to sit up. The very idea that I had disfigured my face because of a stupid whim and that this disfigurement would remain with me for the rest of my life made me sick and disgusted with myself. I couldn't sleep, eat, or talk to my parents. While I sat in my self-imposed seclusion, afraid of the sunlight and the scornful eyes of people, the results of tests came from the clinic.
The conclusion was that some kind of infection was raging in my blood and that I should immediately drink a course of antibiotics. My parents continued to take care of me. My mother bought pills and made me take them. My father urgently looked for a plastic surgeon, and I just wanted to die then. The bastard in the white coat denied responsibility. Dad tried to call him and talk to him, but he hung up again and again. Apparently, he was afraid of a trial for his lack of sterility, and correctly, as practice showed, I was saved by boredom. Yes, lying down, being sick, and suffering was fun, but I was tired of it. First, I started eating, then reading, then, for the first time in many days, I crawled out to buy new rings in the tunnels. Everyone I explained my situation to asked how soon I would get plastic surgery and fix this horror. And at one point, I couldn't stand it, and with all the adolescent aplomb, said that I would never do it. I would not hide the mistakes of youth and all that. In those days, I reminded myself of a vicious little animal. I expected to be mocked, found fault with, and judged. I was almost ready for a fight when I got to school. And I was very surprised. Have you ever been wrong about people? And have you ever been wrong about people for the better? I guess it was because I was already an informal schoolgirl. And for my civil classmates, the same shock would be a stud earring in the cheek and the hole through which you can see the gums. People stared at me, but wasn't that what I was trying to achieve by making my appearance bright? Otherwise, they treated me the same as before. Shared homework, news. Yes, sometimes it was difficult, especially physically. You know, until now, if I dreamed, food sometimes fell out of my mouth. But it was just the little things of life. The teachers were afraid of me, but the infection stopped bothering me, the deadness and rotting of the tissue stopped too, and everything was just fine. Once I agreed to be photographed with my holes by a friend just for fun. He showed my photos to a friend from a rock paraphernalia store, and I got a call offering to take pictures for an ad. Without holes in my face, I would not have received such an offer, and I was assured that this was just the beginning. The parents did not know what to think. They did not expect this from their daughter. Ha! Yes, it was cool. But I was helped to become really famous and popular by the very doctor whose greed had been much stronger than cowardice. When they started writing about me, the youngest model with the love of body modifications, not only in ordinary newspapers but also in very good magazines, this idiot decided to remind me of himself. I don't know what went through his mind when he gave several interviews directly mentioning me and that ill-fated operation. I was so offended that my name was inevitably involved in a scandal. And there was no reputation yet, and it could easily have been ruined by some scoundrel. But I couldn't stay silent. This man almost ruined my life with his carelessness. He could have disfigured other people who would have been inspired by my example, as I was once. Imagine teenagers who decided to modify their appearance and got to such a doctor. I went to court with a lawsuit against him. Medical reports, test results. There were only no photos because in the first days of fighting the disease, I did not allow them to take my pus-scarred face. This monster filed a countersuit for defamation. I added disclosure of medical secrets to my lawsuit. No one was going to give up. We met in court. Yes, I was too emotional maybe, but I wasn't just protecting myself. And not just for my disfigured face, which I still couldn't get used to. I protected all of those who, looking at my photos, secretly wanted to look like me. And very dirty doctor lost the case. That was hilarious. He didn't even get off with a fine, no, he went to prison and would be out of there not so soon. So, now I am a successful and well-off model. Not to everyone's taste, but it's all the more fun to work with photographers who can appreciate me. So my modification turned into ugliness, ugliness into dignity, and dignity into popularity. And when I became recognizable and successful, I initially shied away from my reflection in the mirror. I was tempted to cover my face with a scarf or the collar of my jacket in court.
This was how people looked at me, literally devouring me with curious glances. Yes, I'm still not very comfortable to live with these tunnels. In a restaurant, I can accidentally spit tea at the neighbor on the left and soup at the neighbor on the right. But that was nothing. Photo shoots are tiring, but I love them. I love attention and new acquaintances. I'm not afraid of anything after the story. It ended well for me. What do you think? Would you agree to such modifications? And to photo shoots? If you like the story, stay on our channel. There are many more cool stories here. Click the bell icon so not to miss them. We wish you good health and reliable doctors.